Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
We're getting close to the end of the year, and it's unbelievable how quick 2025 has gone by. And as part of our end-of-year episodes, today we have invited a whole crew from our sponsor, TrustArc, to talk about privacy management and what's happening there. Earlier this year, TrustArc released Arc, a new tooling that is claimed to bring radical simplicity, and we are looking forward to hear more about the philosophy behind it. Joining us today are Ian Runyon, Chief Product Officer, Eric Sandelbach, Chief Technology Officer, and Vali Shenko, General Counsel. My name is Paul Breitbart.
My name is Ralph O'Brien.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So I'm going to keep the unexpected question really short this week because we have 6 people on here.
This is going to be chaos.
All personalities and women. I am here to represent on my 57th birthday. So, okay, unexpected question. Okay, it may not be that short, but I'm going to go for it. What is the most ridiculous thing you ever got a ticket for? Or the most annoying reason you ever got a ticket? I think any ticket is annoying.
As in a parking ticket kind of stuff, or as in an entrance ticket?
Parking ticket, speeding ticket. Yeah, any kind of ticket. What kind of ticket?
I'll jump in. Do you know what? I've just returned I'm actually delivering this from a hotel room where I'm lecturing at Oxford University this week. I'll just drop that in as a humble brag. But not only am I lecturing at Oxford University, I managed to use one of the park and ride car parks that I was here for 4 days, and it allowed you to stay for 72 hours. Annoyingly, maximum stays. So I went to move my car. And I missed it by 1 minute and got a ticket.
Oh.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Not an official ticket. Eric and I have traveled pretty frequently together over the past couple of years for work. And we always joke that sometimes we get in light trouble with authorities. I will call myself out light trouble. I think my most ridiculous one is during the TSA bag check process, my bag got pulled to the side and they went through my bag and it was flagged because I had too many Apple Watch bands in my bag.
Yes.
And when we were traveling in the Philippines, we were taken on a tour by our wonderful hosts, and we went to different islands and were traversing across them on these boats. Come to realize that I went through and I, unbeknownst to me, was carrying pork products with me, which is a no-no at the time because of diseases and things like that. Like our Philippine colleagues thought that because I was an American, I could get away with it and wouldn't be caught. So they smuggled it through the bag that I was carrying.
I feel like you all have better stories than I do. My story really is unremarkable, which is several decades ago when I was in college, I was on the crew team and we were always late because practice was at 4:45 in the morning, and asking somebody who's 18 or 19 to get to a boat launch at 4:45 in the morning is tough because the night before, usually it's
Been there.
debauchery. Yeah. So anyways, as usual, myself and my fellow crewmates were packed into a car because basically you were voluntold that you had to carpool if you had a vehicle on campus at UMass Amherst on the crew team. And so I had 5 people that were way too big to be my small coupe. And we were probably going 50 miles an hour through campus. The issue was that campus had a 20 mile per hour speed limit. The second issue was that when the police started to tail me and turn on their lights, I did not notice that it entered into a work zone because UMass Amherst is always a work zone, the whole thing. And when you enter a work zone, your ticket automatically doubles. And so yada, yada, yada. Several decades ago, I got a $500 speeding ticket for going 50 miles an hour at UMass Amherst. And I tried to, yeah, it was special.
Yeah, my fine was very Dutch. I got fined for cycling through the city center of my university town on a Monday morning before 11, but when all the delivery trucks for the shops were still allowed to drive around, but you're not allowed to cycle through the city center because it's pedestrian from 9 a.m. So trucks could drive there, but a cyclist could not. And as a first week student in the city, I was not aware of that exception. So I got fined somewhere between 9 and 11 while trucks were there, but you were not supposed to cycle. I was trying to argue because, hey, I'm a law student. This doesn't make sense. Yeah, but it's the rules.
Paul, it's funny. I tried the same thing. I said, hey, I'm on the crew team, thinking the police officer would be sympathetic. I think he was not. I think he did not appreciate that additional excuse.
Oh, my goodness. So I think any ticket I get is annoying. I'm not saying they're not justified, but they're annoying. But I did get stopped one time for running a stop sign at the bottom of a hill, driving a manual car, a stick shift. And they said I ran the stop sign. I'm like, no, I didn't. It's just I don't really know how to drive a manual, and trying to come to a stop and move the stick. I mean, it was like 15 years old. What do you expect?
What are you doing 15 years old driving a car?
Yeah, that's a good question.
In Mississippi, you get a permit at 14 and get your license at 15. I mean, we grow up driving tractors at 7, so shush.
Wow.
Anyway, in addition to running the stop sign, the cop tried to tell me that he could also ticket me for driving barefoot. And I told him that's not against the law. He said, yes, it is. I'll be right back with your citation. He came back and it was written off. I said, well, make sure you ask them before you write it. And it was written off the citation. He had to strike through it because it's not illegal to drive barefoot.
Interesting. So Val, obviously we've had Hugh on the podcast before, so we've heard a bit about Hugh. We haven't had Ian and Eric before. So maybe a good moment to ask both of you to introduce yourself and tell us how you ended up in privacy, or in this case, in privacy software. Ian, maybe starting with you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thanks again for having us on today. This is what a great group and a fun podcast to be a part of. So thank you for that first and foremost. So my name's Ian Runyon. I joined TrustArc in Q1 of last year. My background is in software. And so I've been in kind of product leadership, the idea of solving problems for customers through software for the past going on 22 years. And so as a natural progression of my career, it really was interesting to move into a problem space that has this undeniable product market fit. And when you think about privacy and you think about the need of privacy for all companies on this planet, it's a really exciting space to be in. And it has a real impact across not only personal people's lives, but also for companies to ensure that they're doing right by their customers and in turn, generate value for their business. So that's kind of how I ended up here, and had the opportunity to work with Eric in the past. So that was an also awesome opportunity to get to work with one of the smartest people I know. So I'll turn it over to Eric to introduce himself.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Edward. I have been at TrustArc almost as long as Val has. We came in right around the same time as each other. I have a background in software engineering. I've been in a variety of product engineering roles. I spent about a decade at a place. It's the same place I worked with Ian at. It was in SaaS. It was telecom management, so different, but a lot of work in scaling that company. And we ultimately sold it to our biggest competitor. And I mentioned that company because we were 300 to 400 kind of people, 300 something people. And I wore so many hats there. I had engineering, I had our data team, I had our DevOps team, I had a tow-in product, we owned security. I had to have those CISO conversations. And then privacy became like a named title. Who is your DPO? Who is all of this? And at the same time, we had a very successful North American based offering that we had aspirations to take global. And it was in that I came in contact with TrustArc. TrustArc basically taught me how to build a privacy program. And as anybody who really teaches you the first thing about a subject area, you develop a soft spot for. This building a privacy program is not something I would have been able to cobble together otherwise. So in that, TrustArc was able to teach me how to do that. I always thought of TrustArc very fondly, and then the opportunity came across to join, to actually come over to this side of the fence. So I jumped at the opportunity because I knew it just had world-class people associated with it.
Yep. I know how that feels.
I think we all do.
The whole time I lived in Silicon Valley, the only company I really wanted to work for was TrustArc. Go figure.
What's funny is I don't think I knew I wanted to work at TrustArc, because when I came here, it was basically, so I was a customer for 8 years. I was a big advocate like Eric was. And when Jason Westbecker took over as CEO, he was looking for a general counsel and chief privacy officer. And so while Heather Croshaw, our now CRO, told Jason, like, hey, you have to meet with Val. I didn't know that, right? That's why he was meeting with me. I was told that Jason was meeting with me as a valued client. So one day out of the blue, Heather's like, hey, our CEO is in Boston meeting with key clients. Can you meet with him? And I thought I was just meeting with him as a sort of just a friendly chat. Jason asked me what I thought of TrustArc. I was like, do you want me to give you the rose-colored glasses answer or the whole truth? He was like, the whole truth. So I gave him everything, the good and the bad and the ugly, right? And 2 days later, he was like, hey, I know this is a crazy idea, but what about coming to work for me? But it was all orchestrated and planned and yada, yada. I've been here for 2.5 years now.
Val, do I say you're welcome?
Yes, thank you. The joke that I make sometimes is that I woke up with a garage full of Avon cosmetics, but it's more noble, I think, in some ways.
Hey, out of curiosity, was the reason that you wanted to work at TrustArc because of our barefoot work policy?
Right? No, I first came across TrustArc back when it was still a nonprofit.
It was for mandatory.
Back then.
Back then. So I love TrustArc. I'm still a raving fan of TrustArc. We love the fact that we're still very much associated with TrustArc through the podcast. And whenever we have TrustArc people on here, it's like a big family reunion, right? Love it.
I would say the same. I mean, I actually started there in 2017 under consulting route under Ray Everett when he first arrived, who recruited me. But back then it was only Ray, Deborah, and myself who.
I was going to say, I started in 2016. So yeah.
Yeah. And so we were brought in. I remember doing my interview over video conference for actually when I was supposed to be delivering a keynote speech at a different conference. So must have been important.
We're talking old days of TrustArc, right?
Indeed.
We'll have special badges at conferences, but let's also hope that the new strategy will see a bigger footprint of TrustArc back in Europe and in maybe also the Middle East, throwing some work Ralph's way if it happens to be possible as well. I mean, that's always good, right? To have your advocates work for you.
Exciting shift.
And that's also why you are all here today, because there's been quite a shift, I think, happening this year. Who is going to talk about that first?
So I think we have a little bit of a plan here. So if you'll bear with us around how we'll talk about it.
We just shut up?
No, it's all good. But we want commentary, we want questions. But I think the first thing that we did is, for those of you that are Seinfeld fans, I think myself and Eric did the Office fans. Eric and I looked at privacy and privacy tech the way that Michael Scott looked at Toby in some ways, which is, why are you the way you are? We came here to try to figure out, like, what are things that are a challenge for the space and the community. And so we wanted to develop a market thesis, right? Before we could really do anything at TrustArc or anything in privacy to disrupt it, I thought it was really important, as did Eric, for us to figure out what's going on, right? What's happening in the space at large, what's happening to our users and the clients, and what do we need to do that helps enable them, that also supports our strategic growth initiative for TrustArc. And where we landed high level is this idea that the first thing that we observed was the velocity of change of laws is unprecedented. For example, I've talked about this a lot, but there's a 100% increase in U.S. laws in effect this year as compared to everything between 2020 and 2024. There were all these different things that happened. EU AI Act, wiretap claims, DPDPA coming online recently. Like, the velocity of change of the legal landscape is just absolutely overwhelming. And I think that, unlike what Eric, myself, all of you really on the call were doing back when GDPR went live, in 2016 and 2015, for those of you doing this work back then, which I think is all of us, you could print out the GDPR rules. You could read them with a cup of coffee, listening to some, I don't know, what was big back in 2015? Some Nora Jones, maybe some John Mayer.
Oh, I thought webinars.
Yeah. But, you know, like you can listen to some music and you could pontificate about like, what does it mean to be a controller or processor? I was following Lothar Dieterman probably every 3 days when I was a go-to back then in 2016 to be like, Lothar, well, how can you be a controller? And that's the environment that I think all of us were in back in 2016, 2015, a couple of years before GDPR went live. That's just not the...
Let's take a minute. Hold on, Val. Let's take just a second
Yes.
to give some props to, let's all just go, Lothar.
Yes, of course.
Okay, now we can go back to our conversation.
Mad props to Lothar. He definitely taught me a lot of what I knew about privacy when I was getting started. But look, I think the thing that we talk about a lot, Eric, Ian, and I, is that's just not available today. You can't print stuff out and think about it for a long time and pontificate. You need answers fast and furious because the news cycle, the regulatory cycle, the velocity of change it's just crazy, right? You go on LinkedIn and every single day there's news about new things happening. Meanwhile, like shifting over, the next thing that's happening is regulators act fundamentally differently now than they did back then. When GDPR went live, there was a lot of populist signaling, like issues around a big blue chip company doing something that the regulator wanted to show was not acceptable and having a lesson around that company. These days, there are things happening like the ICO doing a top 1,000 websites. There are things like GPC, state coalitions in the United States looking at GPC signals. There are things like traditionally industries that weren't focused on, like retail, as an example with Todd Snyder, or manufacturing with Honda in California, that are now being focused on. So regulators are just looking at a lot more and a lot more often and with higher frequency and higher coordination. I like to quote what Eric says a lot, which is like, it feels a little bit like you get called to the principal more often. Before, unless you were a big target, you weren't a big target. Nowadays, anybody might get called into the principal's office, so to speak. The next thing that's happening is litigation at large. Wiretapping and private rights of action have changed the privacy landscape a lot. Beyond that, there is these layered things occurring like AI, connected vehicles, etc., that are adding to the piles and piles of work that our clients and our community have to deal with. Because again, a decade ago, we were thinking about one law at a time, GDPR in 2018, CCPA 2020, and so on. These days, there's all these privacy laws, and then there's healthcare specific laws like Washington My Health, My Data. There's AI specific laws. There's things like the Allstate insurance lawsuit from the Texas AG for connected vehicle data, or the FTC claims against General Motors. Like, there's all these other layers that we now all need to worry about above and beyond laws. While this is all happening, and probably obvious, but people are overloaded, right? The IPP itself, the International, I'm sure everybody knows this call, but the International Association of Privacy Professionals, said that only about 30% of hiring managers are confident that their teams could do the job. So if you look at those statistics, and if you look at the rising labor and outside counsel and external costs in privacy, it's hard to not to see the obvious, which is people are overloaded, overwhelmed, understaffed, and even when they are staffed, they have a hard time actually fulfilling their core duties. And so why am I telling you all this? Really, once we understood that like these forces were all happening in that market, the thing that we came up with, it's a little cheesy, but it's stuck internally. It's just an internal thing. We don't use it for client calls or marketing or anything like that. But our test case was we need to produce things in our roadmap that help achieve speed, scale, and savings. In other words, privacy tech at large needs to fill the gaps that have been created by this change, by this velocity, by the fact that people are having a hard time keeping up. And in a moment, Eric will talk about some of the things that we've done and some shifts that have occurred. But some of the things that we've come up with, which I think is a little funny, and some of our like origin story, if we were superheroes, is that some of our best, most creative ideas, including ARC, which we'll talk about in a moment, we came up with at the Moxie in New York City, which is a hotel chain, a low-end casual hotel chain, and they have a very cool bar.
Both malls at the same time in the size of these rooms.
Yeah, the rooms are about the size of a cardboard box, but the whole idea is that they have really cool like congregation spaces. Like they have a really cool bar. So Eric, Ian, and I, as well as our VP of Knowledge, Joanne, who I know you all know, are sitting at the Moxie. Everybody's got some kind of like pink cocktail drink in their hand. And we're talking about the possible, right? And we're coming up with ideas of like, what can AI do? What can we look at that are use cases like Apple's Spotlight features on a Mac or Copilot on a Microsoft environment? And how can we use that in privacy? And we're all debating and arguing. And the night went on as most nights go like that, which is we went on a snack voyage to look for the best pizza. We looked for some midnight espresso at some bar that didn't have any coffee and so on. But what happened next is really what's remarkable. So I want to hand it over to Eric to talk about what happened and what we tested.
Yeah. Thanks, Val. The Moxie was definitely a fun night. There was amazing pizza to be had everywhere you turn in New York, and opened my eyes to all that, which was fantastic. All this was happening at the same time as we were starting to test different concepts around that speed, scale, and savings thesis. So we're looking at all the software that TrustArc has, which is a very comprehensive portfolio of software. We're like, where can we run some experiments? And this is at the same time as us, as in every other company on the planet, is looking at these new, amazing, shiny LLM tools that, how can we use these to help leverage things for ourselves, but also maybe leverage things for our customers. So we looked at Nimity, and I don't know if this is a safe assumption that most people who listen to this know what Nimity is, but it's this amazing research body content. Say you assume 50,000 pieces of content bespoke, human written over time, not written by a syndication network or anything like that. It was the perfect tool to just preserve half of your day, pour not a cup, but maybe a carafe of coffee, and sit down and really dig in and roll up your sleeves.
It's still the start of my day reading the daily compliance alert. And it has been for, decade?
Absolutely. And if you want to dig in, yes. There was one thing it wasn't good at. It wasn't good at these very quick questions that popped up. So maybe somebody asked you and you didn't know and you wanted to check to be sure. So we thought it was a perfect example to try to take that corpus of knowledge, infuse that into an LLM, and we released Nimity AI, and just as a test, like, hey, does this help solve the problem? Because honestly, we were thinking about maybe redesigning it again, just to try to find a way to make it easier to access some of that information. But oh man, was it wildly successful. And I think the usage of the tool overall went up over 1,000% after that. And that was a very clear signal to us that, okay, I think we've found something, and that really fits with people. And the other one was around data mapping. Looking at what's necessary to do data mapping, a good chunk of it is administrative in nature and types of things that you just could look up on Google and copy and paste information, and just attributes about the different entities and third parties and vendors and systems. And we looked at that and thought, like, well, why can't this just be an auto tab? Give me the name of it, auto tab, and then fill out a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's what we did. We built these autofill capabilities, and amazingly, that actually doubled the usage of our entire data mapping tool by releasing this. And this was just for like a small part of things, right? But I think what it really hinted at was this notion that there was a psychological problem with data mapping. Like if it feels too hard, you get to this point, you're just like, I'm just going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do that next week. And then it gets with the rest of the stuff that will eventually never get done.
Just if it's too hard, also if it's just too time consuming, because as Val so eloquently explained, privacy professionals don't have time anymore, not even to keep up with what's happening, let alone in doing all the admin stuff.
Exactly. You don't have time for administrative stuff. They don't have time for whenever they get that Slack question to pour a carafe of coffee and go get you the most accurate, real answer out of Nimity. They need something actionable like quick. So these two things that we did were just extraordinarily successful. And just a little bit about like me and my experience in the product and engineering space. One of the more like influential things that I've read in my career in the world of product engineering is this idea that you should really stop trying to make your product look impressive to people and instead start to try to make your users actually feel impressive. Like the goal is not for them to walk away from your product and think, wow, this product or tool is so smart. Instead, your goal should be to make them think like, wow, I am actually so capable when I use this thing. And most companies really actually get distracted by all that shiny stuff. There's a feature that either looks really good in a headline, or maybe there's a wording, architecture you want to use that really feeds into the latest trend of what's happening in LinkedIn thought leadership. But the only thing your users actually really care about is like, does this thing make me better at the thing I'm trying to do? And not someday, like not after this multi-month learning curve, but like right now, like today, with the least amount of suffering possible. So if you think about the privacy tech industry now, it has really largely evolved by layering tool after tool in response to new regulations. A new regulation comes out, there's a new tool to support that. New regulation comes out, there's a new tool. And it's really created this system-centric landscape where today, in order to operate as a privacy professional, you have to know how to use this full collection of tools. You have to know all the different interfaces, read all the manuals, and piece together your workflows in terms of the way that these privacy tech vendors have framed the tool landscape. So we saw really a massive opportunity to turn that on its head and shift it to a user-centric approach. So one that focuses so much on the capabilities of the individual tools, which are still important, but on the actual tasks that privacy teams need to accomplish day to day. As you both have said here, like these people are not spending their day in privacy tech software all day. They need to get in, they need to get something quickly done, confidently, and get back on to the rest of their day. So our approach and our application of that mindset of how could this look in privacy tech is ultimately what we're calling ARC.
And Eric, quick question, but all of the improvements that have been made, when I get a question from a lot of people, and I frankly don't know the answer, so please don't come stomp on my feet, but are all the improvements automatically rolled out to all current clients?
Yes.
Or is it something they need to do to say, ooh, please give me this?
We'll let the Chief Product Officer chime in there.
Yeah, and what a great question. We talked about wrapping this around the user, right? And respect for our users and respect for our customers is at the forefront of everything we're thinking about as part of this initiative. And part of that is we want everyone that's a TrustArc customer to be able to feel more confident and get more done with TrustArc. And so the way that we're introducing this is that we are making this, think of kind of a layer as part of your TrustArc experience. And all of our customers that use our product and use our platform today are going to get access to the ARC experience. And we're not going to pull the rug out from under them, but we're going to introduce a way which is easy just to switch to the ARC experience and really take advantage of all the work they've already done in TrustArc and hopefully get new things that they want to get done faster, more efficiently, and maybe in a way that they are trying to plan their day around the work they need to be done, not necessarily knowing exactly where in our application they need to go get that.
And then there's a couple of things too. Like we know that change management is a very big deal at these of our customers, right? So this is done in a way where, you can try it out, you can go back, nothing is being taken away. All of this is additive. And we also know that there's a lot of apprehension in our demographic here around AI, right? So yes, there are AI elements that are going to be powering and allowing users to get more done, but that is not foundational to ARC at all. So we do have I've used a lot of AI stuff myself. I think our implementation here is the most transparent and most control-based AI implementation I've ever come across personally.
I think that's interesting because a lot of people in the data protection world are embracing AI, and a lot of people in the data protection world are perhaps skeptical about the use of AI technologies in terms of the impact and harms that they might have. Any new technology, all it does is increase the benefit and decrease the harm. It's morally neutral. So the question I would have for you is, what are you seeing on your customer base? What are you seeing that your customers need now that they never used to? Are they skeptical? Are they embracing these new changes?
I was just going to say we're seeing both and we're accommodating both, and we're not going to make any assumptions on their part, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look,
what I've seen is, it's a hot topic at IAPP conferences, and each one of them is, I think everyone's trying to unpack this, right? A room of privacy professionals, and you have everyone looking at each other being like, we're supposed to know what we're doing here, and we're all still trying to figure it out. And I think that's a journey that every organization is going on. And really, ARC was designed with that audience in mind. I mean, this is designed by TrustArc. We have a responsible AI certification that we offer. I mean, this is designed in tandem with being very respectful of data and understanding data privacy and making sure that our customers are confident. So part of the reason we're making this an opportunity people can explore and go on a journey of their own to adopt a certain application or certain parts of the application at their own pace. But like Eric mentioned, customers are seeing a ton of value in getting things done more quickly with AI. ChatGPT introduced a whole new paradigm of the way you get answers. You work software. And organizations, I think, are looking at themselves internally saying, at what tolerance does it make sense for us to be risk averse? Very real thing, but also to look at the benefits that our company could achieve by leveraging some of these things and hopefully choosing vendors that care about that whenever they are picking software solutions to make their team more efficient. As part of those AI elements that might help you get an answer more quickly, very similar to the Nimity AI experiment that we work, is we're providing a control center really inside our application that lets you turn off or control all the granular level of detail you might want, but also explore value that you could unlock by maybe granting access to certain parts of the application.
There's three things that I think would be interesting to think about here. First, just because it's fun, I think it's one of the things that I love about being here is that when we were building Nimity AI and even the way in which we've been building work, it feels a little bit like an SNL writer's room in the 70s without the cigarettes and smoke, where like we are like looking at everything and challenging everything in a way that I feel like is not always available with SaaS companies, but we're looking at how do people use privacy tech? What tasks, like Ian was talking about, what are they trying to do? What jargon are we using that's adding complexity? What onboarding do we need to give them that we can eliminate? Like we were really sitting down and thinking about like, how is this supposed to look versus how does it look? Not just in the TrustArc sphere, but in the privacy sphere, right? And I think that's why we produce something really special. And I wanted to comment on something else that Ralph talked about. There is this really weird, and this is not a TrustArc statement, this is a broad community statement. There's a really odd push and pull that I'm observing, which I think is what you're getting at, Ralph. I think leadership on privacy and legal teams are increasingly, like all leaders, being asked to see what they can do to leverage AI to be more efficient, minimize costs, move faster, etc. The other thing that I'm seeing, which I think is a remarkable and odd dynamic, which speaks to what I think Eric and Ian said, is sometimes the analyst on the GRC team or procurement team or the privacy analyst who's doing vendor due diligence or who's getting a demo of something from us or somebody else might not have necessarily always received the directive of we need to push more AI. And so, there's two really important factors here. One is what Ian said, which is that the goal of ARC is not to just use AI to like use AI. The goal of ARC broadly, in many cases without AI and in some with, is just to make this easier, better, faster, stronger for privacy communities. But beyond that, I think there is an interesting paradigm shift with AI that we're seeing. The joke I make is that if people remember like Audis in the 80s, Audi cars in the 80s used to have a weird button where you could turn off a turbocharger. And it's because people back in the 80s sometimes just didn't understand what a turbocharger was and liked the idea of not being able to use it. We're in that world now with AI where people are certainly embracing it more, but there's all of this trepidation because sometimes while the CPO or the CLO or the GC is being told use more AI, the analyst on the ground is still the soldier at the gates, making sure that they're protecting the company. And there's a little bit of a psychological shift happening, which is, again, why ARC is a privacy enablement capability first. And yes, there is some AI stuff, but like Eric was talking about, there's significant privacy by design controls. One term I've thrown around is this idea of it being like a privacy first AI deployment, where you have transparency, you have control, and you can turn it off.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So the first question I had is ARC live for everyone? I know y'all did a wonderful webinar and some press releases for it, but it is not live for everyone
You
yet.
have to wait another 8 days.
No.
So by the time the podcast comes out, it's only a single day.
Yeah, I was very excited to be part of the beta group for the Dimity AI. So that was exciting. So I'm very excited to see ARC come out. The other thing is, one of the things I wanted to ask about was, first of all, congratulations for all the awards and the leaders and everything that y'all have published lately. I think it's fantastic. One of them did mention also for incident response. And I am unfamiliar with what TrustArc does for incident response. So I'm sure I'm not the only one out there.
Who would like to take that one? I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, there's quite a few things that we do today. I mean, one of the big things that's important is that with Nimity and with Nimity AI in general, the idea that you can now, at your fingertips in real time, ask questions like, what are my obligations if I have an incident in this country? What are the triggers, et cetera, is awesome.
One of the more interesting things, and this kind of hints at the benefits that you get with ARC, and the more of our modules or pieces of your program you put inside TrustArc, you get benefit from. It's not just what are my obligations in this very specific scenario. It has the context of your program if you allow it. So you read a Wall Street Journal headline that says Acme just had a data breach, and the first question that pops into your head is, do we use them? Do we have an XYZ clause with them?
Yes.
Where do we use them in on the globe? And does this trigger any obligations for us? So you ask that question that needs to go across all these different places, and all of a sudden it will do all of that pieces for you, and then it'll bring it back together, synthesize it together, and give you one coherent, actionable answer.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric. That then speaks into the next one. So I've moved my entire TPRM program to TrustArc. So not just privacy and security review, finance, compliance, intake, everything is it. And of course, right now it doesn't have the bits and jiggles and pieces that I need across the board, but it's working. So what you're saying is, if I was to load the contract into TrustArc, and if I was to fully flesh out these vendors, because right now we use another technology for contract management, so I don't. But if I was, then if an incident happened and I need to know which of our vendors use what technology, it could potentially search their list of sub-processors to see if they have it.
It can. Absolutely. There's an underlying technology called MCP that allows these LLMs to talk to different applications. And that's what we've enabled for all of TrustArc's applications with ARC. And it's done in a very secure manner. It's done using all the same controls that govern you log into it and you see only your information. Those same controls make it only your information that comes through to your company and your role and what you have access to, et cetera. But anything that you log into to see, the things that you would see if you logged in, you can ask about and it can have access to synthesize answers for you.
Okay, I'm going to add one more thing to the wish list there, and that is Slack integration or something similar for Teams or Google or whatever, because I don't have TrustArc open all day.
You don't?
And sometimes a question just comes up. Well, no, because I have tons of other things to do as well. So
TrustArc kicks me off its platform after about 10 hours each day. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I would love to just write it in Slack and get my response from Nimity AI.
We'll take a note for sure. I mean, part of this is wrapping around how users use this. So I love these kind of notes. And I think one thing we haven't said, but I think it bears mentioning here is, Kay, to your point, we're looking at ways to solve problems that are occurring throughout your day. And that's what is really all about.
Yeah.
And so the Nimity AI experience, we've said that name a few times here on this call, is actually being folded up to an all new experience that we call Ask ARC. So inside ARC, when you sign in, basically it's your Nimity AI experience, except it knows more about your program. So you can ask those specific answers. It will go out and, using the technology that Eric described, go out and check Nimity for what needs to be done, but then put it in context of your program in a secure way. So you can get those real answers. And that's why Nimity AI is being folded up into a broader experience that's now going to be part of the entire TrustArc platform.
I love it. I so need the APIs over to our contract management system. That way you can also search which clients have what type of reporting time frame on them.
That's the goal. That's the goal now.
Let's connect all the bits and bobbles to get them all together. So I know that we are almost at 45 minutes. We promise our listeners that they don't have to walk the dog for longer than 30 minutes or work the garden for longer. They're going to have to get over it and have a few extra minutes to stay. But was there anything that we have not asked y'all that when y'all came on the program, you wanted to make sure that you shared with our listeners? I think they're going to get a wealth of information out of this episode anyway. Okay, audience, they're all looking at me, smiling, going, we think we covered it. But we're going to say this out loud, Ralph and Paul too. If you have any questions, once you listen to this episode and you real excited about TrustArc, because y'all know we're raving TrustArc fans. If you get really excited about it and you have questions and you don't know who to reach out to, you are always welcome to respond back on the Sirius Privacy page or reach out to me, Paul and Ralph, or to our email and let us know, and we will connect you straight to the people at TrustArc. We're all one big, semi-related, slightly divorced, happy family here.
Next week is our final podcast of 2025.
We do our annual roundup of state laws and what has changed this year and what you're looking forward to, as well as what have been our favorite episodes and things like that. So we do have one more episode coming. And just warning everybody, if you're new to our podcast, we take off January. We relaunch the next season on Data Protection, Data Privacy Day, which is January 28th for every year. So if you're looking for a program to do for your company,
Just go listen to old episodes. There is a ton of information there.
yeah, share our podcast. We'll give you our favorite ones so you have that to launch your program.
Well, in that case, yeah, we have one more podcast to do for 2025, and then we take our January break. So it just falls to me to say thank you to Val, to Ian, to Eric. And until then, see you next week.
That was Sirius Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Sirius Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No, that's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMD research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.